It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, turning an eyesore into an eye-opener and a signature city landmark. See how the Salina skyline has been transformed with this amazing work of art. Also, the arts take center stage in Halstead, which is bursting at the seams with creativity and talent. Wait till you see what we discovered. Plus, learn about the medicine tycoon and his iconic company that helped shape Wichita in its early years. And in our Kansas Wild Edge report, enjoy some spectacular scenes of the Kansas countryside in transition during the pivotal month of October. I'm Sierra Scott. Those stories are queued up and ready to roll in this edition of Positively Kansas.
Positively Kansas is brought to you in part by...
Before investing your hard-earned money, make sure your financial advisor understands your objectives. Mark Douglas, CFP, serving our community for over 20 years, providing customized financial solutions that focus on the individual.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas serves more than 930,000 Kansans in various programs. Independent, member-owned. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, supports KPTS.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Kansas grain elevators are sometimes called the skyscrapers of the prairie. Some of them, no longer used for storage, are getting a second life as giant canvases. Chris Frank shows us how an artist in Salina is turning a drab-looking grain silo into a work of art and a real showpiece for the city.
Paris has its Eiffel Tower. New York City has Lady Liberty. Our nation's capital has the Washington Monument and Mall. St. Louis has the Arch. Salina has, well, Salina doesn't have an iconic attraction it can point to draw visitors to the city. Folks in Salina point to attractions other Kansas communities have. Abilene has the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum as an attraction. Lucas, as we've shown you here on Positively Kansas, has the Garden of Eden and Grassroots Art Museum. Salina sits right smack in the middle of the state at the intersection of two major freeways. Interstate 70 has more than 20,000 vehicles daily passing on the north end of Salina. Interstate 135 has similar traffic patterns on the city's west side. But locals here would like to see more of those motorists pull off the interstates into the city to stop, look, and spin. But first, Salina needs an attraction, something to wow a person's imagination. They think they have it with large mural art.
We don't really have an Eiffel Tower per se, so we're trying to build these larger murals as a way of, pulling people off the interstate, getting them to stay downtown and activating those spaces, getting them to, visit businesses around town and just connect with the community more.
Eric Montoy and Travis Young co-founded the Salina Canvas Project as a way to improve the community through art. The project includes some smaller artwork, but it's this large mural on the sides of a tall grain elevator downtown that's the shining jewel of the overall work.
We've noticed a big boom in murals, especially in Kansas and rural towns.
The big boom in murals, as Montoy puts it, includes murals in Wichita's North End, anchored by the Beechner Elevator mural. According to the tourism group Visit Wichita, it's the largest mural in the world painted by a single artist. Salina Canvas Project members hope these murals being painted in their downtown sparks conversations and interest among the general public.
And I love it when they put these paintings on these buildings too. It just revives them, makes Salina stronger, I think.
You ever get nervous about going up on those heights?
No, not anymore.
That's Guido Van Helten getting on the powered lift to be raised along the silo's north face. Van Helten is the artist brought in from down under, Australia, to design and paint the mural.
The idea of bringing world-class artists from not only Kansas but from outside of the U.S. I think is a huge draw to the project and a lot of the artwork that's being created right now.
This isn't the first large art project for Guido Van Helton. Just take a look at the mural he painted on this Wellington, Australia dam. It is part of a $1.5 million mural art trail project in southwest Australia. The state government there funded 16 murals throughout the city of Collie. It is part of a plan to diversify the economy of that traditional coal mining community. It's a testament to this artist's skills and why folks in Salina pursued him for the Canvas project.
When we kind of stumbled across Guido, we felt that what he was doing was really unique. Taking these larger silos and turning them into these large murals was something that I don't think a lot of people were really doing, and utilizing those structures that are just large canvases is kind of the idea. Finding these walls that are blank and beautifying the surrounding area with them.
The Australian artist has been painting murals on the sides of American grain silos for 4 years. Van Helton's works in the U.S. can be seen in Nashville, Tennessee, South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota.
What's drawn me to those projects is the architecture and the scale and the size of these buildings that are most often found in the Midwest. So I've become specialized in very large scale work and in silos.
That specialization led him to the Midwest and now to Kansas. That's because there are so many grain elevators, silos, across the Sunflower State. Kansas perhaps is perfect for this type of work. Kansas is known as the leader in wheat production, but is also a leading state in the production of milo, corn, and soybeans. Well, that grain production requires silos for storage. Grain elevators are likened to skyscrapers of the prairie. They've also been called prairie castles. So many of them are in decay from age, and many aren't in use any longer, but can be too expensive to tear down and remove.
This town particularly has a whole skyline worth of they're often disused buildings, and that to me was my interest in them from the start.
This work is called The Mural at the Mill. The H.D. Lee flour mill hasn't been in service for many years. Developers in 2015 had considered turning the mill into mixed-use, multi-unit housing. It would have included a restaurant and swimming pool high above the Salina skyline. Now, it was an ambitious plan, but it was abandoned. Now, Van Helton's brushes and paint, along with the assistance of artist Ian McCallum, will give new life to the elevator and mill that was put into operation in 1899.
These buildings are really interesting to me. They're inspiring to me because they represent the identity of a town, you know, the shapes of them, the history that is often connected with these sites, former industries, but the interesting thing about them is they are completely blank, and they weren't really designed with any decorative ideas.
Guido visited Salina in 2020 while he was working on a Minnesota project. He arrived here for work in July of 2021 to set up shop and begin this work. The artist didn't immediately start painting, though. As with other art projects, Van Helton takes time to research and take photographs of people and places.
So I spent about a month on that here. I really build this whole series of images that I then look at and think, what is really meaningful in here, or what attracts me to a certain image, and does that also suit the space? And
other murals around the city will be painted, getting more artists involved.
Well, tell me what you see on the building behind me. A blank wall? Well, those at the Salina Canvas Project see a blank canvas with its potential for being an artistic mural.
I was thrilled.
Brad Anderson is the executive director of Salina Arts and Humanities. He believes art can be a magnet to attract visitors.
Having a chance to celebrate creativity, to celebrate the human ingenuity in such a visible way and a personal way makes for healthy conversations and a great opportunity to learn more, not just about the specifics of a community, but of the spirit of humanity.
Salina's downtown also has passageway tunnels for pedestrians to get to alleyway parking lots. Now, most of the tunnel walls are blank and are set up to be canvases for an artist's creativity and more reason to attract the eyes of visitors here.
I think it's good. It brings the people downtown so that half these buildings are empty, but it's bringing more business downtown.
A bonus for Salina is that the funding for the Salina Canvas project is all private. Van Pelton's mural work, including preparation, is about $250,000. Project leaders are hoping to raise an additional $1.5 to $2 million for additional works in Salina.
We just felt that going from a private angle was something that we wouldn't have to maybe jump through some of the hurdles that I think are challenging. I think the Salina Arts and Humanities here does a great job of navigating those situations and helps bring art to the public in a way that is appealing to everyone.
Anderson says the only involvement of the city is to offer advice when asked.
When the private sector steps up and helps fulfill our mission of transforming this place, of enriching lives and building community, and they're doing that on their own, it's a win for everybody.
A local win, which will have people stopping and lifting their heads to get a full view of the work.
It's just it's great. It's like a photograph. He is just excellent in his vision. It's just togetherness, love of all. Looks like going to be several races.
Painting a mural on the curved walls presents a challenge for the artist. He says it's a complicated process.
Another reason why form is very important. I feel like there's a beautiful form in these shapes. I like that they have some flat areas, some curved areas, but the real trick is to almost paint it sculpturally. And I need to adapt these figures to fit these forms and create a kind of an illusion that it's 3D and it's continuing around, and that's a very challenging thing that I find with the silos. It's not just like a flat wall, which I guess you can kind of put anything on.
With favorable fall weather, Van Helton was able to complete the project in early October, a bit sooner than he thought he would. The artist quickly jetted off to Switzerland for his next project. So, visitors to Salina who've watched the work in progress can return to see and enjoy its completion. In Salina, this is Chris Frank for Positively Kansas.
Van Helton says he doesn't plan on doing other murals in Kansas, so his Salina work will stand unique in its presentation. It's a chance for talented, hardworking folks across South Central Kansas who produce handcrafted goods to show off their amazing work. Dozens of vendors lined the brick streets of downtown Halstead as part of the city's 54th annual Arts and Crafts Festival. Anthony Powell was there.
Halstead comes alive, a tradition more than half a century old. The second Saturday in October, the brick of Main Street, crowded with vendors and shoppers from all over South Central Kansas.
We only look for handcrafted, fine art, and vintage or repurposed items. So nothing that's mass-produced.
That's why Lynette Allen, owner of Lynette's Interiors in Mound Ridge, has had a booth here for several years. Like many small business owners, Lynette finds marketing a challenge. But the Halstead Brick Street Arts and Crafts Festival provides a great opportunity for people to get an up-close view of her beautiful handmade pillows and flowers.
It's a very good exposure, and I feel like people are looking for artwork and are interested in it.
Paintings, there's some photography, there's canned goods, baked goods, handmade jewelry, there is repurposed glass, there's woodworking, we have a blacksmith this year.
There was also plenty of food available. With so much to take in, the 2021 festival was packed. Some vendors visiting with as many as 200 customers, making the folks who call Halstead home beam with pride.
It's just a fun little activity, kind of brings the community together, shows a little bit more about the surrounding area, not just inside the Halstead, and brings people in.
The festival also offers educational opportunities. We stopped by the Sunflower Woodworkers Guild booth, where members talk to folks about how picking up the woodworking hobby can enrich their lives, something they really stress to kids as an alternative to devices.
Really having that pride that you've made something by hand. It is a hobby that is ever learning, ever evolving. You cannot master it. You can't have perfection. But showing kids, you can start with building a simple table or a simple sign like what we did today, and then seeing and building on that skill set and going from there.
So whether you learned something new, bought something new from a hardworking small business owner, or just got out and enjoyed some beautiful weather, the 2021 Halstead Brick Street Arts and Crafts Festival strongly carried on a tradition that's been going strong for 54 years. An event that so perfectly captures the small-town feel of the host city. And plans are already underway to make the 2022 Brick Street Halstead Arts and Crafts Festival bigger and better than ever before. Based on the momentum they saw here in 2021, organizers think they can easily go from 33 booths up to as many as 50. In Halstead, I'm Anthony Powell for Positively Kansas.
In particular, organizers would love to add food vendors and live music to the event. So if you're interested, they'd love to talk to you. The onset of autumn is a beautiful and mysterious show. In this week's Kansas Wild Edge segment, Mike Blair explores the changes through candid images and original poetry.
What happens in October in the churring of the woods, where halcyon days are ending with a trove of summer goods? What happens in October when the chilly morning dew reflects the living images of everything that grew? When webs are hanging heavy with their autumn jewels of gold, and torpid weavers struggle through a year that's growing old. What happens in October when the birds must find their way, the ease of warmth behind them on a windy autumn day? When creatures fill their baskets while the harvest can be found, in days of waning plenty as life's clock is winding down? What happens in October when the glassy shards of frost come marching through the nighttime as the summer warmth is lost? What happens in October? Well, the ducks and cranes come flying, while the cottonwoods are sighing, and the ivy vines are drying. What happens in October? New spiderlings are hatching, red and yellow leaves detaching, sky and earth and glory matching. The hills are in their splendor as the aster flowers surrender, and shimmer in a current ripples lines as if they weren't. Yes, the hunter's moon is rising as the calendar turns sober, making golden days more precious. That's what happens in October. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
Next week, Mike gives us an up-close look at how Kansas wildlife reacts to the season's first snow. Wichita is the birthplace of many iconic companies and brands: Pizza Hut, Coleman, White Castle, Cessna, and Mentholatum. That deep heating menthol salve was invented by A.A. Hyde. Hyde played a major role in establishing Wichita as a regional hub for industry and commerce, and he used his success to improve the quality of life for Wichitans across the social spectrum. Jim Grayway shows us how he did it.
If you get a lot of colds, get a lot of relief. Get Mentholatum Deep Heating Rub with deep heating action. Deep heating.
Mentholatum was also invented by a Wichita man whose legacy continues to impact the city more than 100 years later.
Well, Mentholatum comes out of a personal crisis. The story really is that of A.A. Hyde. A.A. Hyde comes here in the 1870s at the time of the cattle industry, gets involved in banking, and then transitions into real estate and development. In the late 1880s, Wichita is the third largest real estate market in the country after New York and Kansas City. Then there's a depression in the early 1890s, and all of those investment speculative ventures evaporate. And poor A.A. Hyde is left to try to make a living with what he can.
With a wife and 9 kids to support, Hyde and some partners started making and selling soap to stay afloat. But it wasn't long before Hyde had a better idea. This is his grandson, John Hyde.
Grandfather got interested, as he often did. He was a fiddler. He liked to fiddle. He got interested in menthol, the product itself. And he decided that this would also be useful if you could make a salve. So he spent, I think, about 9 months using the kitchen stove as his laboratory, trying to melt down menthol and finding a formula that would create a salve, a jelly, that would hold its consistency in all weather and in all kinds of climate.
The result was a cooling ointment that soothed congestion and sore muscles, and Hyde knew just how to sell it.
It was marketed as the little nurse for little ills, and in particular, Hyde was interested in promoting the idea of the sample size, giving these out, distributing them to ministers and others to show what it could do, and that would get people on board with buying this. Eventually, they're going to shift into using that distinctive light green glass so people can identify it very quickly, and so the Mentholatum model becomes a national success, and they start buying up other companies. And because there were lots of little patent medicine types of companies that were producing similar salves and so forth. So Mentholatum buys these up, buys out the competition.
The original Mentholatum building still stands here at Douglas and Cleveland. Now it's the Spice Merchant where fine coffee and tea are sold.
It's very unique.
The building had deteriorated and was being used as a thrift store when Bob Baywee bought it 20 years ago. He tore out the false ceiling and shag carpeting to restore the place to its 1909 glory.
The floor we're standing on is where Mentholatum was mixed up and poured into the bottles and labeled and ready to be shipped. The floor behind us, the main floor, was the packing and shipping floor. And then in the very far background was the office.
Baywee says it was important to preserve this building and keep alive the history of Mentholatum and A.A. Hyde.
And he had experienced all the booms and busts of the city of Wichita and everything, and survived, supported a family with many, many children in it, had lots of employees, and created a worldwide business organization. So it's a real example of entrepreneurship and citizenship.
By the 1930s, Mentholatum had become a household name with a jar in almost every medicine cabinet across the country. A.A. Hyde was now a wealthy old man, and the company was about to pull up stakes for Buffalo, New York, for better access to international trade routes.
But it stayed here with the understanding of his sons who ran it, that the company would stay here and have its headquarters here until grandfather died. And he dies in 1935, at which point my family, after 2 years, closing everything up, leaves, and the company ends its presence as a company in Wichita.
While the Mentholatum Company left Wichita some 80 years ago, the legacy of its founder lives on.
But grandfather said, if you've got as much money as I'm getting, you've got to give that all away. And when you die, if you haven't, you died a disgraced man.
A devout Christian, Hyde created a charitable foundation to help the poor and improve the quality of life for all Wichitans. His commitment to the community is still evident to this day.
His name appears in 3 places which represent different forms of the legacy. The elementary school at First and Oliver is A.A. Hyde School. The second was in the section of the town where the streets bear the name of women, Laura, Patty, Ida. That section of the town was known as the Hyde Addition. And AA had bought up the land early on, platted it, and named the streets, and then sold the lots. But he saved a square block for a park because he felt that people living here in Kansas should have a shady place, these are his words, that on summer evenings and everything and summer days you could go into the park. And it's still there, and it's called Hyde Park. And the third was a YMCA organization, which is still in existence, I'm quite sure, called Camp Hyde for children out on the Little River.
Meanwhile, Hyde's grandson, who was 8 when his family moved to New York, returns on a regular basis to serve on the Wichita Public Library Foundation Board. The Hyde family sold Mentholatum to a Japanese company in the 1980s, but the influence of this generous genius and his therapeutic salve lives on in the city where it all started.
That's a wrap for this week. Positively Kansas at kpts.org is our email address. If you have a story idea, we always need them. Until next time, I'm Sierra Scott. Be safe and happy. See you later.
Positively Kansas is brought to you in part by program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank Trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas serves more than 930,000 Kansans in various programs. Independent, member-owned. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, supports KPTS.
Before investing your hard-earned money, make sure your financial advisor understands your objectives. Mark Douglas, CFP, serving our community for over 20 years, providing customized financial solutions that focus on the individual.